Along 27th Street in Boise, it's all quiet at Gravity Payments. All 50 employees are working from home.
Basically, almost every single role in the company, there's at least one employee in Boise.
CEO Dan Price says more than 200 employees company-wide from Boise to Seattle and beyond volunteered to take temporary pay cuts. His credit card processing company has lost about half its revenues as transactions drop from stay-at-home orders.
We were losing upwards of $1 million a month, even $1.5 million. But we figured out how to get it down to $1 million, and so that meant we had 4, 5, 6 months maximum to turn things around.
Price never wanted to do layoffs, but even before the pandemic hit, 98% of his employees had decided how much they'd cut from their own paychecks, with Price and another executive team member taking 100% pay cuts.
If we are able to maintain, the expense saving that our employees have sacrificed for, that takes our runway more to 10 to 12 months, so it doubles our time to recover.
You may recall Price made headlines back in 2015, raising all workers' minimum pay to $70,000 a year. You may think that is a driving factor in employees' decisions to give back. But Price believes his workers are ultimately trying to put their 20,000 small business clients first.
With small businesses up against the ropes so bad and so heartbreaking and so terrifying, we feel like we have more of a difference to make and more good for small businesses in the next 16 months than we have in the last 16 years combined.
In fact, the company most recently created the Small Business Champion. It's a business referral where folks can join as a contractor, helping Gravity Payments recruit and keep small businesses afloat during these tough times.
We hope that some of those people will end up joining the company full time once we recover and can start hiring again.
Price doesn't know exactly what the future holds, other than what most Americans are probably feeling. We'll figure it out as we go. But at Gravity Payments, there's one really big philosophy driving the company, something you can't put a dollar amount on.
I've spent my entire life building this, and now it's in jeopardy, but I would rather lose my company than have anybody lose their health or their well-being. And that's really, really important for us to put our health first in this circumstance, because if our health goes away, the economic fall will still happen anyway. So we have to put our health first.
Across the state today, several groups, including the Idaho Freedom Foundation, are behind those protests. They aren't happy with the extension of Idaho's stay-at-home order. Now, this is video that you're seeing right now of the protest that happened just a few hours ago in front of the state capitol. You can see people with signs standing around. They're listening to speakers. Here's what some of them had to say.
It's a demonstration to help remind people that aren't here about the constitutional rights that we all have and enjoy in this country, and a reminder to our government that they don't have any authority to take them away from us. The Constitution does not in any way reference all of these rights belong to us except in an emergency.
Now, protest organizers did ask everybody to follow social distancing guidelines, but it didn't look like that happened a lot there today. There were similar protests in Lewiston and Sandpoint. Idaho Governor Brad Little showing no sign of changing course. He wrote about the president's plan, saying, quote, "The president's newly released guidelines for phased opening of the economy align with Idaho's decisions and actions to overcome the coronavirus. In fact, every step of the way, we have been in sync with the president's direction."
Yeah, you'll recall earlier this April that the Idaho State Board of Education voted to extend the soft closure for schools here in Idaho. Well, they had another meeting yesterday and it was held virtually, and so I watched it here, and I learned about what the criteria is now if schools did want to reopen. So students across the state are learning from home with the peak of COVID-19 cases in Idaho occurring just last week. Criteria was unanimously passed for local school districts to use in deciding whether to resume normal school operations. For schools to consider reopening, there needs to be no social distancing orders in place. Also, the peak of the state infection has passed for at least 14 days. A local curve infection may need to be evaluated. Schools need to have a review for cleaning and disinfecting protocol. And finally, the schools have to have a re-entry plan that identifies things like how they will offer alternatives for students and staff that are vulnerable to infections. Debbie Critchfield, the Idaho State Board of Education president, says they are still discussing ways to be consistent as the future is unclear.
Many of our districts around the state have already made the decision that they're not going to reopen. They are all in with the remote delivery that they have now. And I think having this discussion of what the board expectations are for thoroughness and uniformity, and it's not to be micromanaging or necessarily tell how to do it, but I think that there are some areas that we do want to have a discussion about.
Dealing with the coronavirus is weighing heavily on a lot of people's minds. CBS 2's Erica Lee shows you an artist making coronavirus-inspired art and raising people's spirits.
Sarah Crawford, a local artist in the Treasure Valley, is making positive coronavirus-themed art to cheer people up during this difficult time. She mixes humor, optimism, and elements of Boise to make these unique works.
All this new art that I created was more to kind of give people a way to smile, a way to not maybe take it so seriously, even though it is serious, but to maybe brighten up their day. And that's kind of what I started doing this coronavirus art, is to help people, my friends, family, just to cheer them up, just to say, you know, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this.
She originally made this art for self-expression, but received so much positive feedback that she decided to share it with others. A piece she made honoring the Nampa Police Department's courage during COVID-19 was inspired by her 25-year-old son, who is currently an officer there. She says raising him was her greatest masterpiece.
And he's the greatest thing I've ever created. So in 25 years, you know, he's been the one that is constantly pushing me, inspiring me, telling me not to give up.
All of Crawford's coronavirus art is free because she wants to pay it forward. She says her greatest inspiration is Idaho itself.
I was born and raised in Idaho, and I love Boise, Meridian, and there's a lot of really good artists here, and I also teach art, you know, private lessons once in a while, and I just love encouraging people. And here is the most beautiful place I think you can actually do art, unless you're like at some kind of oceanside resort. I like the ocean too, but I love Idaho, and I am totally creative here.
Erica Lee, CBS 2 News.